Mass casualty drills are taking place all over the country, indeed the world. April 26th, tomorrow, is when the USS Carl Vinson is expected to finally arrive off the coast of the Korean Peninsula. And it also just so happens to be the day when Operation Gotham Shield, which is a drill involving FEMA, Homeland Security, and a myriad of law enforcement and military agencies, is set to conclude. They are going to be simulating a nuclear bomb blast over Manhattan, but they're going to be holding a massive coordinated terror attack drill. And so they're saying they're going to go one step further and stage a very realistic emergency event involving multiple sites and actors posing as the casualties. So stage a very realistic emergency event involving multiple sites and actors posing as the casualties. So actors posing as the casualties. So
actors posing as the casualties.
Then all you see was people were limbs. I mean, free postings everywhere, everywhere.
The 20-acre facility on the lot of Stu Siegel Productions uses the magic of Hollywood to transform sterile training environments into dynamic recreations of any real-world situation that can be imagined. TV and movie special effects artists create realistic battlefield effects. Smoke, sound, and smell add the highest level of realism safely.
On this simulated battlefield, it's hard to determine what's real and what's not.
We call it hyper-realistic.
Kit Lavelle served in Vietnam and now runs Strategic Operations, a movie set turned training ground, preparing thousands of U.S. servicemen and women for combat.
So the shock effect of seeing that happen is priceless.
The action is fake. They're actors with a unique perspective on what others would consider a disability.
The goal of Urban Shield is to provide a multi-layered training exercise designed to enhance the skills and abilities of the region's first responders.
We want to do an exercise in Boston that's never been done before. We want to involve over 500 first responders in a 24-hour scenario.
The first bomb explodes just a few yards from the finish line.
Big noise happened, okay? It's gonna be all right, baby.
I'm okay.
Okay?
All right, who's got the blood coming right here?
We don't know.
Stop the bleeding. All right.
We call it hyper-realistic. The shock effect of seeing that happen is priceless.
First of all, there were reports in the Boston Globe, they were twittered out, there were at least 2 of them about a controlled explosion on the 600 block of Boylston Street, and police were reportedly in the news conducting that controlled explosion. Police were reportedly in the news conducting that controlled explosion, and he witnessed bomb-sniffing dogs both at the starting line and the finish line, and when something happened related to the explosion, he heard police and people with the dogs saying, "Don't worry folks, it's just a drill."
I wouldn't want to comment on that, Karen, right now. I would allow U.S. Attorney Ortiz to comment on that aspect.
Why are you denying that there was bomb drills Monday morning? We got photographs on Infowars.com, folks.
Next question, please. Next question, please. Yes. Yes.
Happy to take any questions.
Well, sir, why were loudspeakers telling people in New York and stuff, be calm moments before the bomb went off? Is this another false flag stage attack to take our civil liberties and promote homeland security while sticking their hands down on pants on the streets?
No.
Thank you so much, David. I'm back here in Dallas. We're at the George W. Bush Library, and he and Mrs. Bush are going to weigh in on the news and their lives in private.
Watch the former U.S. President George W. Bush making a slip of the tongue and almost saying that the Boston Marathon bombings was a conspiracy, while being interviewed by ABC News anchor Diane Sawyer for the inauguration of his presidential library. Notice how visibly uncomfortable his wife Laura Bush becomes.
Mr. President, I do want to get right to the news of this week.
Sure.
For so many Americans, the terrorism in Boston.
Yeah.
Many people have wondered if it took you right back to 9/11 when you heard it.
Well, at first, you know, I was deeply concerned that there might have been a organized plot. I don't know all the facts. I don't think we all know all the facts, but I was deeply concerned that this could have been, you know, another organized, highly organized attack on the country. And it still may be. Again, I don't know the facts, but I do know that it's really hard to protect the homeland.
We've heard this all before. It happened in 9/11. There were drills in conjunction with Newtown. There were drills in conjunction with Aurora. It happens again and again with the
Today we were running an exercise for a company, 1,000 people involved in the whole organisation, but the crisis team, and the most peculiar thing was we based our scenario on the simultaneous attacks on the Underground and mainline station. So we had to suddenly switch an exercise from fictional to real, and it took a long time.
Just to get this right, you were actually working today on an exercise that envisioned virtually this scenario?
Almost precisely. Almost precisely.
There's always chaos in any type of event like this. We practiced to this. Not more than 3 weeks ago, we took every one of our officers, our patrol officers, and a couple of hundred officers from the Los Angeles Police Department, and we practiced the exact scenario that played out today.
Talking to the officers involved.
Begin with a deadly terror attack in London. Gunshots outside of Parliament after a driver mows down pedestrians on Westminster Bridge.
We know there are a number of casualties.
It was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Then the suspect, armed with a knife, attacks a police officer, killing him.
A metro train in Russia's second city of St. Petersburg was the target, and the explosive device apparently went off as the train was moving between stations. Mobile phone footage showed the train stopped at the next station with a huge hole ripped in the side of one of the carriages as people attempted to get the wounded out.
panic on the platform.
Something's happening.
A moment of panic in a peaceful city. This was Stockholm this afternoon, as people fled in terror from a truck that appeared to drive deliberately into crowds of shoppers on a pedestrian street.
Sweden, the truck attack. Terror drill, exact same location, exact same scenario, immediately prior to this fake truck attack. This eyewitness who was involved in the drills is telling about it. The police practiced on terrorist acts during the days before the attack on Wednesday and Thursday. Practiced police together with the defense and SAPO to manage a serious terrorist attack. The day after, 4 were killed and 15 injured in a terrorist attack. When I heard what had happened, I could barely believe that it was true. It was just what we had done, she says. It's just what we had done, she says. She says it is not the first time that disasters occur in connection with the training. I've said before, I think that when they do these drills in the exact same area, and oh yes, this was in the exact same area, this is when they collect a lot of the footage and images that they're going to be releasing. I have people in the comment section all the time when these things happen saying the pictures look different. It's raining on one day and it's dry on the other. Yeah, because they're not on the same day.
I believe that a law has been passed in the United States. I think it's part of the Defense Authorization Act, and now makes it legal to propagandize American citizens. Is that, do we know about that? Yeah, it's true. All over the world, our intelligence services are engaged in conspiring to create outcomes. That's their job. That's how they're successful. But we've entered an era in which it is not crazy to assess news events to see if they're real or not real. And in fact, it's kind of crazy not to. Why is it unthinkable that there might be spectacles that might drive an outcome in the news stream? And there's all this money being pumped into these unaccountable, terrorism fighting things, and I'm skeptical of certain news events that seem more theatrical than the norm. You hear these things and it's like so novelistic. You're like, real life doesn't work that way. Like, these are so novelistic. Someone's coming up with it to make it stick in the popular imagination.
Dust and debris, screams of panic, people holding on to each other in confusion. This is the immediate aftermath after a double bomb attack in the departure lounge of Brussels' Zaventem Airport.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.